Well, hello, friends, all you wonderful avid readers out there. And I am so excited to talk to someone that I don't even know how we haven't talked before because we've been in the writing world for a while. I'm so excited to talk to Patricia Johns today. First of all, Patricia, welcome. And why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Hello. I'm I'm here today because of my book, Green Pastures, that's coming out in March, and this is my first book with Bethany House, so it's very exciting. I have been around for a while. I write Amish romance for Harlequin's Love Inspired, and I write something called Amish Adjacent for Harlequin's Heartwarming line, which is an Amish setting, but the main hero and heroine are not Amish. So it makes it a little bit interesting, and those are a lot of fun to write as well. So I've been around. I live in Canada with my husband and teenage son, and a very feisty parrot who is in lockdown right now in the other room.
We're not letting the parent have any part of this
We're
conversation right
not. He'd
now.
take it over. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
I love it. Okay, so many things. Let's just start talking about Green Pastures first.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us about the book and kind of how you got the idea for this series.
Okay. Well, it is a little bit women's fiction and a whole lot of romance.
Hmm.
Um, the idea came from just some back and forth conversation between myself and the editor at Bethany House. It was it was interesting because when I got that contract, I had really worked hard on a proposal for a book, and I'd worked really, really hard on it. I was really proud of it. We sent it in, and they were impressed, and they said, "We love it, but not this."
You're like, wait, what?
Yeah, they said, "We absolutely love it. This is fantastic in many, many ways, but we can't sell it, even though it sounds like a wonderful book." They said, "Do you have anything else that's more traditional Amish romance?" And so I sat down and went, and started thinking like really quickly, sort of on that high of, I can't believe I'm chatting with Bethany House about this.
Yes, yes.
And I need to come up with something else brilliant immediately. And it just really came together with some chats with my agent, and those sort of conversations where your agent talks to the editor, talks to the agent, talks to you. You have this
Yes.
back and forth thing. And so we wanted to do a veterinarian, because what fun to write a working veterinarian, working with animals, working with livestock. That would be a lot of fun. So I started from there, and I have my heroine, Tabitha Schrock. She left the Amish. She became a veterinarian. She got married to an Englisher guy. He completely shatters her heart,
Oh,
and she comes home divorced. And so she's decided, you know what? I really think God wants me to live Amish, even though I messed it up out there in the Englisher world. I need to live Amish. But for her, that means she never will remarry while her husband or her ex husband lives, because that's how they do things. And so she's back home trying to make a life for herself, knowing she's not going to fit into those regular
right.
norms there. When she left, it really messed things up for her sisters, and now she's back again, and nothing was the same for them. Her younger sister Amanda never got married. Every time she had a guy who was interested in her, um, her sister would come home in blue jeans and
Oh, yeah.
scare the guys off. So, anyway, so Amanda has decided she wants to find herself a husband. And so she goes in pursuit of the least eligible bachelor in town. Then their very youngest sister, who was very pretty and managed to find herself a husband, is having some marital difficulties.
Oh,
So the
wow.
three sisters are together once more, and they have to decide how much they're willing to sacrifice to stay true to the Amish way of life, and what those vows mean to them.
Yeah, so good. Okay, then where is the location of this? What Amish community is it set in?
It is not, it's a fictional Amish community in
Okay.
Pennsylvania. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
in
fictional.
Pennsylvania.
So we call it Shepherd Hills because I base it around the 23rd Psalm. So the first book is Green Pastures, the second book is Still Waters, and the third book is going to be called Through the Valley. So, and I center it around the 23rd Psalm. So I called my fictional community Shepherd Hills.
Oh, I love that. And it's so
Yeah.
true that every community just has different rules also. So
Yes.
you've written a lot by Amish and Amish adjacent type of books. I mean, I would be in Montana, which some of my books are set, and then
Yeah.
go to Ohio, and they do things completely different.
Yes.
So how did you decide kind of the rules of that community?
Well, I like to set my communities on the more conservative,
Mhm.
not quite Schwarzentroober, but close to the way they're living. I like just because the restrictions make for a really interesting plot. I often think, like, how would I live if I were born into a very
Uh-huh.
conservative Amish community with my personality and wanting to be a good woman, wanting to do things the right way? Um, what would my struggles be in a very, very conservative community? And also, I have a pretty outspoken personality, so which would probably be problematic.
Yeah.
So I often wonder, like, how would that work? I mean, you're born with your personality, right? But your culture does shape you. So I do tend to choose a more conservative community just for the challenge. Sometimes people will ask, like, one of the interview questions is, if you were to trade places with one of your heroines, which one would you choose? Like, none.
I don't.
Just because I put them through misery. I don't want
Yes.
to go through that misery. So I do choose the more challenging of settings for that reason.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, the Trooper, which you mentioned, I mean, absolutely no electricity at all. I mean, no cushions on their
Mhm.
chairs. I was able to visit one of their homes, and just so different. And so that there's all those external um, restrictions, we could say, and then you have sisters. How is the sister relationship? Because I know with different personalities of sisters, that can always be a challenge too, which is also internal. Then you have the romance parts of it. So yeah, I love how you said, like, I don't want to go through anything any of my characters go through, because
Don't.
you have the external and then you have the internal. So talk about some of those internal relationship type of things too.
Well, for the sisters, for Tabitha, who is the veterinarian who's back, she struggles with where she belongs because she doesn't really fit in with
Hmm.
the women. She's not married. She's divorced, which is shocking to her community. Like, they can't wrap their minds around divorce. They just don't do that. So they might suffer through a lot, but they don't
Yeah.
do that. So she is really struggling with fitting in and making friends and having them accept her as her, because she's working in what would be considered the male sphere of things. She's out there working as a vet. She's not at home with husband and kids and that sort of thing. So for her, that is a really big struggle. For Amanda, because she never did find her guy and she never did get married, she is she she struggles because she's a little bit bitter towards her older sister, who
Mm,
she sees as kind of messing this up for her. Although she's thrilled her sister is back and she loves her dearly, there is a little bit of push and pull there for her. And she thinks, you know what, it's my turn. You had your chance, for good or for bad, you had your chance. And now it's Amanda's turn. And she's like, I want my turn at a family. And so for her, she's feeling some of that push and pull. For their youngest sister, Rose, she's a little bit smug, just a little bit, because she's like, well, she got married, right? All is generally fine for her, right? She married an Amish guy. She did it right. And so she's a little bit smug until some of the frayed edges start to show.
mm,
And one of the points in my book is that the I do is not the end of the story, which it often is. I write, a lot of romance. So
right.
often, oh, they got married and, we close the curtain and that's done. Um, but it really is the beginning of the adventure.
Yes.
It's a huge, like, two completely different people now have to join together, as a family unit, and in solidarity off they go, and that can be really tough. So she's experiencing some of the tough parts of now you're married, but now what? And she's having her own struggles with that, and their father has a very strict, nobody is allowed to trash talk their husband in this home,
Oh, yeah.
which is a very well-meaning rule, right? Respect your husband. You chose him, you married him, talk nicely about him. And I think it is a very a well meant rule for him. It's coming from a different place, which we find out through the book.
Oh.
But so he's got a story that gets him there as well. But it isn't helpful when they can't talk through their problems, because it's not necessarily trashing one's husband as it is getting some moral support and figuring out, okay, how do I do this? How do I succeed at being a wife? How do I understand him? How does he understand me? How can I do this? Because it really is a big challenge ahead of her.
I love it. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of the women's fiction, but you talk about
Yes.
the romance. The romance in it. Let's tell us, give us some hints about the romance element.
Well, the romance is Amanda and the least eligible man imaginable. So so Menno is looking for a wife, but he comes from just the problematic family in town. And
Hmm.
so they nobody really trusts him. He has a bit of a history, but he's decided he would like to get married. And all of the women are like, "Would you now?" as they take a big step back. But Amanda takes a look at this and thinks, I know what it's like to have a problematic family because her sister jumped the fence
Yeah.
and ruined everything for her. She understands what that feels like. And so she thinks he deserves a chance. She remembers him from grade school and he had a kind heart. And she thinks if he still has that kind heart, there might be something there. So she decides to be absolutely daring, and she decides to take some baking to him, which is just loaded with meaning if she comes with a few Tupperware containers of baking. So so she decides to go and see if there is something there. And of course, her family are telling her, "Oh, don't do this. It's not a good idea." And but she really thinks she deserves her chance, and she thinks that possibly this is her chance. So the romance is between Amanda and Menno as they navigate these two sweet, slightly awkward people who have their own personal issues, and they navigate towards falling in love and finding a way to make a future together.
Oh, it sounds so sweet. And I love how when I'm listening to you talk, it sounds like real people. It's like you're telling me about your neighbors down the street. And I'm like, what? What happened next? What's going on? What's going to happen with them? I just love that. I mean, I when you find authors that they're that alive as they're telling you, I mean, they just come off the pages as being alive and real people. It's not like you're caught up in a story. It's almost like you're caught up in what's happening with these friends and who's going to happen and who's saying what and what's going on. So, how does it? How do the characters come to you? Do they come to you fully formed like that, or is it getting to know them and seeing their play as you interact during the writing process, or are you a plotter and just like know who they are right from the beginning?
I am a plotter, but I learn a lot along the way. So
Hmm.
I always say I plot in pencil, so things might change.
Yeah, yeah.
What I think at the beginning might not be quite how things end up at the end. So, yeah, my characters, they begin. Um, I have a general idea, and as I write, they kind of flesh out and become more real as I write. And then, of course, after I'm finished the first draft, I'm like, okay, okay, I know who these people are. And then when I go back and edit, I can really get in there and flesh them out from the start.
Right.
So that first draft is a bit of an exploratory thing with my characters. But then once I'm editing, I know where I'm going, and I'm ready to go.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so Green Pastures is the first one that's coming out in March. And
Mhm.
when do the other books come out?
Um, that caught me a little off guard.
So, like,
Still Waters, I believe, is in the fall. is in the fall
Okay.
this year, and, I believe Through the Valley is in the spring of 2026, if I'm
Okay.
remembering properly.
So we
Um,
don't have to wait years, right? Is that that's
no.
what I was wanting to know.
No, no, in the next few months, we'll have, Still Waters will be coming out. I've just finished that one and sent it into the publisher. So that one's written, and, we've gone through some edits. So I think we're almost finished editing it. I'm sure I'll lay eyes on it a few more times as we look for typos and stuff, but I think I'm pretty much done edits on it as well.
Yeah, that is the fun thing, when you write lots of books. You have the books that you are proposing, you have the books that you are currently writing, then you have the books, sometimes multiple, that you are doing editing on, and then you
Yep.
have, um, you're doing marketing and talking about the books that just released. So,
Yes. Yeah,
it's
it
a
keeps
lot.
me busy. It keeps me it is a lot. I find it really fun. Sometimes it is difficult too because the book that like this book, um, it like it's was written so long ago that sometimes my brain is forward in books that I'm currently writing, and I have to like dig back to
Yes.
get myself back to where I was when I was writing the book because there is such a big lag in publishing between writing it and it coming out. There's a quite a gap of time there.
Yeah, and then you're like people are like, "Oh, I love that scene," and you're like, "When was that scene? What happened in that scene? I don't know. I think I like that scene too. That's why I wrote it
Yeah.
in there." But
Well, yeah, and the worst part is sometimes I can't quite remember how I ended something because I will have my rough draft ending, which is probably the one that's most firmly cemented in my head, but then I'll change something and so it will change in my subsequent drafts, and then the editors will take a look and then we'll talk and then we'll revamp a little something here or there and then something else changes again, and by the time I finished it, it will probably look different, quite a bit different than the rough draft in some ways, you know what I'm talking about,
right,
right?
yeah.
Like the story is the same, but there will be things that change. And the worst part for me is that when I look back on it, the story that is most firmly engraved in my mind is my rough draft.
Right.
So I'm like, uh-oh. No, things change, and always for the better. Just because my like the editors, as you know, working with editors, like they really bring out the best in us, right?
Mhm.
They can see where we're going with it, and they go, "Oh, I see what you're trying to do here. What if?" And you're like, "Oh, that's brilliant!" And so there is a real partnership between the author and the editor, just bringing the best out in the book. Like readers should all be eternally grateful they don't get our rough drafts because they'd get a decent story with a rough draft, but the really good ones where they're like, oh, this is fantastic. That is because of the partnership between the author and her editor, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, so like they really, really make it shine. So I'm not saying that in any kind of complaint that things change. I'm like, oh no, you should be grateful.
Yeah,
Things
absolutely.
change. Be grateful. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry.
I love it. No, I love it. Well, my next question was, I would just love to hear a little bit about how you got on this writing journey. Because now, I mean, balancing all these book deadlines, people like, oh, she must have just been born just wanting to write, and it just must have been so easy for her to get published. And is that the truth, or
Well,
what's
wanting to
behind
write,
this?
yes. Easy to get published? No. Um, I started writing I remember being a little kid and watching a made-for-TV movie, and just, being so inspired by it, I decided to write the book, and the book was 3 paragraphs on loose leaf.
Yeah,
And I showed my mom and she was like, "That's very nice." And she was busy doing something at the time and she was like, "Oh yeah, you should do more of that," because I think it kept me quiet and out of her hair.
right.
Right? And so I took off and I was writing story after story after that. I just loved it. I found my passion and I really loved telling these stories that I would write. Um, so as a kid, I loved writing. As a teenager, I would get like stories published here and there. Um, in like teen magazines and that kind of thing.
Well,
And
that's pretty impressive, though. I mean,
yeah,
I think most people don't get stuff published as a
no,
teenager, so
no, I was it was my huge passion and it really gave me a boost. And then
yeah.
I got my degree in English lit and at that point the family that I came from, they really believed in education and much further education. And so I thought, well, I need to get my master's degree because that's what you do. And I
Right.
got waitlisted for my master's degree.
Oh,
And
wow.
it just killed me because it really like it hit my ego. It hit my, well, what are you supposed to do if you aren't going to go the academia route, like long haul? Um, and see, my plan had always been, well, I guess I'll teach somewhere and then I'll do what I really want to do, which is write books on the side. And that had been my plan. And when I got waitlisted, I was just absolutely crushed. And I thought, well, what do I want to do? I was like, I want to write books. And so I was just mad at the world. And I was like, fine, I'm just going to be a starving artist and I'm going to do it. And so I did. I,
Wow.
I wrote like crazy. Um, and after I was married with a young child by the time I got a book published with Harlequin. But I had, as a young woman, and it was just before I met my husband that I was like, fine, I'm just gonna do it. But it took a lot of hard work. It did. It took a ton of hard work and writing and trying, and working dismal jobs that I absolutely loathed. I hated every second of those jobs. So the timing was good because I was able to write for um the book that got accepted through Harlequin while my son was little. So by the time
Uh-huh.
I would have been going back to work was when I was starting to make enough money that it would count as a part-time job. And
Right.
so I was like, well, there we go.
Let me just do this instead of doing those other jobs. Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of the part-time job, I could do this. And then I built it from there. So it's just worked really, really well that while whenever I reached the point where, okay, well, now we would need like another income, then I was able to boost what I was making. So it worked really well that way. Um, I can't, like, I have to give my husband the credit for backing me up through all of this and not
Yes.
saying, "This is scary, just please go get a reasonable job with, healthcare," right? So,
Yeah,
I
exactly. Yeah.
right, he really he backed me up and he was like, "You know what? I think you can do this and you're good and there's nothing else you love, so you need to do this." And so his support meant a lot, and I couldn't have done it like this without his support. I know it was, I was able to do it because I was at home with a young child, with a husband supporting me while I was at home with a
Mhm.
young child.
Mhm.
I feel like I see the spoiledness of that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know it's privileged and I almost feel apologetic for that. I'm sorry. You know, but I recognize that, it's incredibly tough, and I got a boost because I had that support. So
Right.
recognizing that, as I know there are a lot of other authors who don't necessarily have that support while they are working their tuchuses off trying to make this work. And, they just have, like, my full respect. They've got talent, and they're getting out there, and they're doing it, and I'm proud of them. And I just recognized that I was just a tiny bit spoiled that way, and because I think it might be frustrating for some if they listen to that and they're like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
good for you." Right? Good for you because I don't have that, and so just to acknowledge that it's tough.
Yeah, although raising kids and writing is not
It's
always the
tough.
easiest thing either.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not saying it's a walk in the park.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's challenging, it's definitely challenging.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and also, I mean, the academic, talk about to go in the academic route, they don't really prepare you for publishing and
no.
the kind of the nitty-gritty of all the things you have to
Yeah.
proposals and getting an agent and working on multiple things. I mean, this is just a completely different thing. It's kind of like you have to learn as you go or learn from going to writers conferences. Um,
Yes, yes. I think it's something it's kind of self-taught and picking up from others who are willing to give you a little bit of wisdom, right? Listening to authors who are further ahead in the game, and I was, "Oh, good, they're giving me some information on this." You're right, like, it is the sort of thing that you can't just necessarily walk into a classroom and come out knowing how it works. You have to just jump in and start paddling,
yeah.
really.
Which
Yeah.
which is encouraging if someone is out there saying, "Well, I would like to try." Like,
Yep.
what would you say to them? Because a lot of people, because I don't even have a degree. I have my high school diploma and
Mhm.
a lot of elbow grease that went into trying to figure out how publishing works. Went to
Yep.
a lot of writers' conferences. But a lot of people think, like, oh, where did you get your degree? And maybe someday I'll go back to school and be able to write books. And well, no, you don't have to do that. So, what
No, you
encouragement would you
don't.
give to someone that may be thinking, like you,
Mhm.
I just have been having these stories in my head since I was little and I don't know what to do with them. What encouragement would you give them?
I would say just write like crazy and read like crazy. Read, read,
Yeah.
read, write, write, write. That is, I mean, I have a degree in English Lit, which is basically reading a bunch of books. I have a degree in reading books. Right? That's what I've got. And I can write an essay, yes, but does essay writing actually help me write a really good romance novel? No, it does not. Um,
Yeah.
the reading a ton of books is what really gives you what you need. So reading, 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 writing, writing, writing is what I would say. And also, I would tell them don't discount yourself because a lot of times we think, oh, well, maybe I'm not very good. Well, who says? You might be
Right.
fantastic. Right? You might be the next voice and you might be just absolutely brilliant at this. It's for me, like growing up, getting a degree was what was expected of me, and I'm,
Right.
I'm glad I did it. It was a good experience. I'm happy. I'm happy I got my degree, but it's not a absolute necessity to doing this job. It's just part of my growing up experience.
Yeah, I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
you talked about reading good books. I always love to ask what Christian novels, maybe ones that you enjoyed way back in the day, maybe some that you've enjoyed recently. What Christian novels do you like to recommend to other people? I
um,
know. I should have warned you before we got started that I would ask this question.
well, I have the books that I've been reading recently. Um, the one that I read recently was by Suzanne Woods Fisher, The Imposter. The thing I love
Oh,
about Suzanne Woods Fisher is that she can take characters that are really flawed, incredibly flawed characters, and she makes them so endearing. Right? Like
yeah.
you read the story about a character who, when you see maybe the way they're behaving or their attitude, you think, in real life, I might not like this as a person very much. But when I see inside this character's head, I feel so much empathy for them and how they got here and how they just don't see these other things. And she just makes them so you can identify with them so well, and
Yeah.
they're so flawed, but they're so endearing, and you just wanna read the next book and see what happens to these characters. I think she is just brilliant at that. So that's one that I'd recommend with Suzanne Woods Fisher. I think a lot of her books, that is her trait, right? Is that
Yeah.
she makes these flawed but incredibly endearing characters. I really like her. I guess Beverly Lewis, of course, is just like the reigning queen. She
I
started
know.
the
Yeah,
entire genre of
she
Amish
did.
romance. I mean, let's just give kudos where they are due. We know who we owe all of this to, and
Yeah,
it is Beverly
exactly.
Lewis. Right? She's fantastic. So I've been reading some of her books lately and just enjoying them. She has such a gentle way of writing that even when something is a tough situation, the way she writes it is so gentle that you think about it later and you were like, oh, I was actually reading about like this really tough childbirth that's
I
actually
know.
quite
If it
dramatic. And
was Yeah, if it was
yeah,
on a movie, it'd be like, my kids can't watch this movie with me because it's gonna be really hard.
yes, this is gonna be a little, upsetting, exactly. But she's just great. She's Beverly Lewis.
Yeah.
So I would recommend her books. And I'm trying to think. For fiction, those are the big ones that I would recommend for Christian fiction right now.
Good, and I think those are both, I mean, you can't go wrong with any of their stuff. So, those
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
good ones to recommend. I love it.
True.
Yeah. Okay, so we have these 3 books. Go ahead and give the titles again, because I am so excited I cannot wait till the audiobook comes out. I have to say I'm more of an audiobook listener now.
Ah,
But yeah, I love audiobooks now because I could like, you
okay.
know, cooking for my kids and all those things. They can listen, but give us the titles again and then let us know where people can go to find out about all your books.
Okay. So Green Pastures is coming out March 18th, and it will be in, you can buy it through any of the regular book retailers. Christian bookstores are definitely going to have it. And it's so yeah, so all, like, Barnes and Noble and all of the,
Yeah.
you can order it in, and depending on how big their Christian book section is, it might be there. So fingers crossed. Gosh, that'd be wonderful.
It'll be
So
there. It'll be there.
it'll be there. Come on. Yeah. The next one, Still Waters and Through the Valley, will be coming out in the next few months, and I'll keep you all posted on those. You can find out about all of my books if you'd like to look at my backlist at patriciajohns.com. Under my book list there, I have all of them. So if you'd like to look at, it's a lot of Amish romance. I do have some cowboy Christian, this all Christian, Christian cowboy romances as well. But there's a lot of Amish, and that's really where I guess my sales hit their stride
Yeah,
was
there you go.
when when I started doing a little bit of Amish. So there's quite a few Amish romance books if you're into that as well.
Awesome. And we'll put the links in the show notes. But Patricia, thank you so much for being here. I've loved getting to know you. It's been super fun.
Great, thank you so much.